So just to give you a figure, this figure might look quite small to you, but it's quite large for us. Close to $850 million are being procured in commodities on a yearly basis. And another figure you need to look at is 85% of those commodities are not directly bought by the government. They're donated by the agencies that I mentioned before. So for HIV alone, it's about $100 million are being procured directly from Ethiopia. And one important thing I want to mention is it used to be so that the donors would do all the procurement, but what's happening right now is the countries are starting to do the procurement themselves in order to build capacity. So once this program kind of phases out, then the countries know how to do this complex procurement process. Okay, so I'm sure you all know where Ethiopia is, right? So this is, Addis is right here, right? So this is a central warehouse, and then we have our regional warehouses scattered throughout the country. As you can see, there are not that many warehouses here because not many people live here. This kind of imitates where the public is. So where do we come in? So the USAID Deliver project in Ethiopia has developed an inventory management system. It was started about 7 years ago, and it literally manages the $850 million that I mentioned earlier. We use it to capture purchase orders, receive invoices, and issue to 3,500 facilities throughout the country. But not only the public facilities, we also issue to private sector, so pharmacies, clinics, and so on, that are not served directly by the government. The system also has a dashboard, and this is quite big. It has to do with transparency, that the government, as well as the donors, and remember the figure that I mentioned to you earlier, 85%, right? So the donors want to know where the money went to, and this is how they'll know what happened to their money. So here's an example. This is a map of where the family planning commodities are going. So condoms, DMPAs, emergency contraceptives, and so on are all here. Some of you who know the geography of Ethiopia, this is the Somali region, by the way, where you see a blank space. And this is our dashboard. And the dashboard is an example of a family planning dashboard. It's telling you where the products are, what the distribution appears like, the trends, and everything. A little bit on data use. I must say that data use is very new for the country. It's probably true everywhere, but more so in our case. There's a lot of resistance or hesitance to share data broadly, but a whole lot of information here. And one of the things that I've learned the last 2 days is I've seen and finally met the manufacturers that I see in the system, so Bayer and Abbott and so on. You will be able to go to this dashboard and see how much of it is being bought by Ethiopia, if any of it has expired, how much we paid for it, and all kinds of stuff is available practically live, given that you have access. Okay, so how do we make all this work? So in a country like Ethiopia, where you have poor connectivity, it's very difficult to have like a web browser-based system, right? So we have a system that talk to each other whenever there's connectivity. On an hourly basis, we push data back and forth. But for that to happen, I'm starting to get into JS1 right now. For that to happen, we had to maintain a central repository of lookups. You guys have been calling it master lists, right? So what do we track there? We track list of products, manufacturers, suppliers, facilities, and so on. And you can imagine what it takes to maintain such a list. So we got introduced to JS1 quite late. In fact, Rami introduced that concept to us about almost 2 years ago now. And the moment I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is what we should have been doing. Because this would have been a dead end, really, to continue to do what we're doing. We're still doing it, by the way. I'm not saying it's over, but we are now going to adopt this strategy where we're going to use JS1 for our locations as well as for items, so that we get out of the business of maintaining lists and keep doing what we're supposed to do, which is delivering medication to patients. Okay, so this reminds me to say something. So at the opening of this conference, I think the president of JS1 mentioned something, and he said, I think 87% of FDA-approved commodities are already JS1 compliant. And I'm screaming, thinking, how about WHO commodities, right? Because I don't know how many of you know this, the donor community does not buy from the FDA commodity list. They buy from the WHO commodity list. Good reason, a lot of pharmacists in this room has to do with cost, right? So an HIV medication per patient in the United States costs about $20,000 to $30,000 per year. HIV medication per patient from India costs less than $300 per year. So guess where we're buying from? India, right? It's actually even about $150 per year. So I'm more interested if manufacturers in India are GS1 compliant. Of course, I'm interested in everybody being compliant, but what matters to us in this particular case is that these manufacturers are compliant. So I encourage all of you to please also consider and kind of push those agencies and suppliers to focus more on this area. So back to the master direct list. So this is our directory list, so list of products. And I know you won't be able to see, but I'm sure all of you will trust me when I say there's a huge amount of duplicates, right? There are about 8,000 items in our directory services, and there should be 2. So you do the math, and you know how many more that we have in the system that shouldn't be there. So that nice dashboard that I showed you earlier has a lot of complex linking and unlinking to make sure that a condom which has been entered 4 times is really a condom. So we have like a lot of IT fun work, but that's really doesn't add any value work that we've done that we want to move away from. If we were to use G10s, we wouldn't have to worry about those things. So to summarize the challenges, we have products and items that we're trying to maintain. And mind you, the fact that we don't have a standard list of items means we can't share that data globally. So maybe India will realize that, maybe Kenya will realize that we have a lot of depots, and then maybe they should buy, they should get it from us and so on. We also need to map our facilities with GLNs, is what we try to do, because we also issue to facilities as much as we get stuff from suppliers. We have a receipt process that is automated, but it's not based on barcodes, so we're trying to get them into using GS1 compliant. I'll show you what we've done. And then pipeline information, hopefully we'll start to get into using EDIs. So I know you won't be able to make out these numbers, but all the different colors you see are all the different countries we buy from. So again, it goes back to like, you can't possibly maintain this. You want to get it from a database, right? Like GDSN is an ideal source for us. If you're curious what the large range is, that's India again. The good thing about India is they're far ahead on GS1, and a lot of the commodities that we're getting from India, at least on the tertiary package, are already GS1 compliant, but we want them to go all the way down as much as possible. So duplicate manufacturers, Abbott, I know you have multiple names, but they've entered it in so many different names. It's crazy to maintain all that. Okay, so the barcode. So what have we done? We have developed a GS1 barcode. We tested it on an Android phone, and it was done with collaboration with UNFPA. UNFPA bought emergency conceptors from India, a company called Mylan, I believe that, or Famicare, actually. Mylan bought Famicare. For those of you who are curious how we've done it, basically there's an open source platform out there. It's called Zing. So it didn't cost us anything. It works for an Android, and we're choosing Android just because the Android platform is free. We don't want to go with an iPhone. We'll consider it a Windows platform if we have to. We're also using JSON for those of you who are technical geeks for serialization purposes. So essentially, basically, as we were able to identify when it came to Famicare, a lot of the products were already GS1 compliant, at least at this tertiary level. In this particular case, Luigi arranged for them to print data matrix at the primary level, secondary level, right? So we're able to do that testing for us. Now, for those of you who are GDSN geeks, we do not subscribe to a data pool. So we already have this information in our system that came off the advanced shipping notice. So I was talking to One World Sync, I think, and you said something that caught my attention, which is you guys can expose APIs for us. So theoretically, we'll be able to make some small changes, and we will be able to make a connection to that. Because again, we don't want to, we move away from maintaining a list. That is not the work we want to be doing. So in this particular case, if we can find a G10, we basically will tell the person to add in the G10 into our database. We're talking to various individuals to see which option we want to go with. Do we want to go with a GDSN subscription, or could we have a single GDSN subscription that goes to this global data hub that USAID is working on, and we will subscribe, we'll get our G10s off that. That is the discussion that we're having right now, and Rami will probably mention that when he continues. The cool thing about this application that it works offline. So whenever you get connectivity, then we do uploading. So those of you who've traveled outside the United States or Europe, you'll realize that connectivity you don't get it everywhere, right? So I'm used to working in an offline mode. All my Google Docs are in offline mode because I do not want to be dependent on internet connectivity to do my work. Okay, so I think I mentioned this already. This is I'll show you some photos. So this is what the warehouse looks like. The warehouse is actually quite interesting. I mean, this is quite good standard, right? As you can see, the operation is what's lagging, right? It's easy to buy people goods. It's more difficult to get them to use it properly. Oops. So these were the commodities that we got from India. You can see the barcoding. But don't forget that I showed you at the very beginning, there's a companion handheld device. So we do not believe that you should use this smartphone application for scanning exclusively. You should be able to use it as a processor, and then you can have your handheld device that has a Bluetooth connection. Oops, this goes really fast. Okay. And these are the secondary level packages. So we're able to receive these commodities at the central warehouse and then issue it to the regional warehouse, and then follow that issue from the regional warehouse down to the facilities. So some of the outcomes of this experience. So identifying 2D data matrix is harder for a mobile app than a 1D code. Basically, just the 2D is just a lot more smaller to scan. And the big one, the quality and placement of the barcodes was quite critical. I'm sure Chuck and many others will probably tell us a whole lot about this, because it became quite an issue. 1D barcodes and tertiary level packages were covered with plastic stabilizers. So there's a lot more where we have to work on the supplier side, but we can't really do it as one single country. I think this is something that GS1, I'm sure, is doing globally. Obviously, secondary level packaging should not be done at the central level, and this has to do with the operational issue that I talked to you about. We got to be able to receive in pallets. I know for some of you this is automatic, but it's not in our world, and we're working with the government to understand that. You don't want to issue in receive and issue in small boxes. You want to receive in pallets, and even as much as possible, issue on pallets, and leave the secondary level packaging for small hospitals and health centers as they issue them out to patients. So advantages of the mobile platform, it just meant that we could do whatever we wanted to do with it. We were not stuck and married to this device. For example, we were able to add support to serialization right away. You didn't have to go to a vendor, ask them to send us a new version, and so on. Disadvantages, as I mentioned earlier, it's obviously slower to do it on a phone. We initially planned to do it on a sort of entry-level mobile phones. That doesn't work. I think you got to go at least with the mid-level or above. I would say it's about $200 or more is what it would cost you per device. Next step is we want to go into issuing POs and advanced shipping notice electronically. And this will provide the country a lot more advanced information of what's coming. So we do have advanced shipping notices today, but the advanced shipping notices are not really advanced because we get them on the same day that the products arrive. So we want to get them way in advance for real. All right. If you're interested, you can go to our website. You can go to js1.html online. You can see you can download the application on Google Play. And if you have any feedback, please send it to us by all means. And it's for anybody to use, so it's not explicitly meant to be used for Ethiopia alone. Thank you.